Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
We begin tonight with weather and rounds of rain pushing through Metro Detroit on Exact Track 40 radar.
And now, take a live look outside from our Metro Airport Skycam. The sun is setting on yet another dreary day all across the region. Well, these temperatures are a whole lot more mild than what we're used to this time of year.
Yes, we have that going for us. Let's get over to Brett Collar at our first look at the forward forecast. Hey, Brett.
You know, that's the trade-off, right? If it was colder, this would be snow.
Yeah.
So there you go. You'd be using the shovels rather than the umbrellas. Exact Track 40 radar still keeping a close eye on some of these very light showers. The steadier rain has been up to the north of us, up in the thumb today, but we still have a lot of this low-level moisture in place. So the next couple of hours, a couple of light showers, some drizzle, maybe even some fog will remain possible. Even though it's a good deal cooler than it was this time yesterday, still well above where we should be this time of the year. 49 in City Airport and in Mount Clemens, down to 41. That's the cool spot right now in Howell. And like I mentioned, in some spots, it is a good deal cooler. West of 275 and 23, you're about 10 degrees colder right now compared to this time yesterday. Numbers staying somewhat steady, but dropping slowly with that chance for a light shower or drizzle continuing this evening. More rain, though, expected in the coming days. Maybe some snow this weekend. We'll talk about that weekend forecast here in just a bit.
All right, thank you, Brett. Our other top story tonight, a major victory here in Michigan for former President Donald Trump.
Yeah, the Michigan Supreme Court rejected an attempt to remove him from the primary ballot. Now, Victor Williams is in our newsroom tonight. Now, Victor, this is the exact opposite decision made by Colorado Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's correct. We are not persuaded that the questions presented should be reviewed by the court. That's what justices in Michigan's Supreme Court said on the matter, Karen and Damon. Now, that decision is placing the former president in a position to qualify for the primary election ballot, at least for now. Michigan leaders in state court decided not to hear the case claiming Trump shouldn't be able to run for his role in the January 6th insurrection. There was some uncertainty, especially considering the fact that the state of Colorado voted to keep the 45th president of the United States off the ballot for the 2024 election. The former president tweeted himself, essentially calling this a victory on social media platform X, which partly reads, quote, "This pathetic gambit to rig the election has failed all across the country, including in states that have historically leaned heavily towards the Democrats. Colorado is the only state to have fallen prey to the scheme." Responding to claims that she would have kept Trump off the ballot, U.S. Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson is also chiming in with the following statement, which partly reads, quote, "Ultimately, as our Constitution establishes, the U.S. Supreme Court must provide the clarity and finality to this matter. I continue to hope that they do this sooner rather than later to ensure that we can move forward into 2024's election season, focused on ensuring all voters are fully informed and universally engaged in deciding the issues at stake." And Trump is already talking about appealing that decision in Colorado. Live in the news from Victor Williams, Local 4.
All right, thank you, Victor. It is a major upheaval to Michigan's political landscape after the courts ruled 13 Metro Detroit State House and Senate seats need to be redrawn because they violate the Constitution. Our Mara McDonald live in Corktown tonight. Mara, not only do they need to be redrawn, they need to start immediately.
Karen, they sure do. The whole thing is an absolute mess. Here's the situation. The Citizens Commission, which was tasked with redrawing these seats and taking the politics out of it, well, they have essentially failed spectacularly, which means you've got 13 seats, potentially more, that are all up in the air. The Court of Appeals ruling was unanimous. The Citizens Independent Redistricting Commission drew maps on the basis of race and got bad info from their so-called experts, and in the end diluted the black vote to the point it doesn't pass constitutional muster. Detroit Democrats sued and won.
We're here today highlighting the importance of not relying on an inept commission.
In 2018, Michigan voters opted to take the drawing of these seats out of the hands of the legislature. Every 10 years, the party in power would draw the maps which had to satisfy legal criteria. The complaint? The process was too political and the seats were gerrymandered. The new commission would be made up of citizens who, in the end, drew maps worse than the legislature ever did. So how do you redraw 13 districts in Metro Detroit without altering the rest of the Metro's districts? The short answer is Nobody knows.
We will be submitting a brief to the court on January 2nd, which will discuss next steps and what we believe the proper remedy is for the currently drawn maps, which have been deemed unconstitutional.
Back here live, the Court of Appeals is hauling everybody back into court on January 5th to essentially figure out what to do next. Do they assign a special master? What are these maps going to look like? Where do they go from here? Meanwhile, the Citizens Redistricting Commission has a special meeting called for tomorrow. Not only do they have this issue on their plate, now they have members who are resigning who will need to be replaced. We are live in Corktown tonight. I'm Mara McDonald, Local 4.
All right, Mara, thank you. A reported 8,000-person caravan of South and Central American migrants is making its way toward the U.S.-Mexico border right now. Meantime, Biden administration officials are in Mexico City meeting with that country's president. Alice Barr is following this story for us tonight from Washington.
Good evening. President Biden sent some of his top administration officials to Mexico amid a growing humanitarian crisis and political problem at the border. Today, a clear illustration of the swelling numbers of migrants at the U.S. southern border. An estimated 8,000 men, women, and children slowly moving north through Mexico in the largest caravan in more than a year. It comes as the U.S. Secretaries of State and Homeland Security are in Mexico meeting with the Mexican president. The leaders looking for solutions to what the State Department calls unprecedented irregular migration in the Western Hemisphere.
What Secretaries Blinken and Mayorkas are going to be pushing for is enforcement, enforcement, enforcement.
As lawmakers on Capitol Hill struggle to make a deal on tightening immigration policy and boosting border security, the Biden administration is hoping Mexico can do more to beef up its southern border. The migrants in that new caravan are starting from southern Mexico after making the trip from Central America, Venezuela, Cuba, and other countries, fleeing harsh conditions and seeking asylum in the U.S. Congressional Republicans are pushing for restrictions on asylum claims as Customs and Border Protection has been overwhelmed with a surge in migrants. Crossings are down from record highs last week when more than 12,000 migrants a day were crossing the border illegally.
We're being overrun. President Biden has abandoned the Border Patrol.
A potent political problem for President Biden heading into a re-election year and a humanitarian crisis for thousands at the border. President Biden spoke last week with Mexico's president, the two leaders agreeing more needs to be done to address challenges at the border. President Biden has also said he's open to significant compromises in those ongoing immigration talks on Capitol Hill. In Washington, Alice Barr, Local 4.
And right now, that caravan is in the southern part of Mexico, just across the border with Guatemala.
Monroe County Sheriff's deputies are investigating tonight a motorcycle crash that killed a 20-year-old man. It happened yesterday. It was about 4:30. We're told the man from Toledo was driving a motorcycle in the right lane of Lewis Avenue at a high speed. He then made a lane change into the left lane, crashing into a Ford Explorer. The motorcyclist was transported to a hospital in Toledo, where he did die. The driver of the Ford Explorer was not injured and was released at the scene. Well, they kept it close for most of the game, but in the end, the Pistons just couldn't pull out a win. Yeah, the team now has a record-setting 27 straight losses, and some fans are wondering when and if it'll end. Will Jones is live for us tonight, and Will, I understand you spoke with a fan who's somehow managing to stay pretty positive.
Damon and Karen, so much so he let me know before the interview if you were looking for someone to pile on the Pistons, count him out. Instead, he wants the city to rally around the team to help them turn around this disappointing season.
Being such a huge Pistons fan, when they were putting in this mural a couple of years ago, it was pretty incredible to see it go up.
Corey Nikoloff has seen the Detroit Pistons play in every NBA arena, and this season ticket holder isn't ready to throw in the towel cheering for the Pistons, even after the team set an NBA record for the most consecutive losses in a season, 27.
And you mentioned that the boos were disappointing.
Yeah, they are really disappointing. We, at a time like this, this is when these guys really need our support.
The fans are still showing up and showing out for a team that, isn't really deserving of it right now.
Ku Cahill hosts the Locked On Pistons podcast.
Why should anybody keep their jobs on the worst team in NBA history? I don't care if it was my mother.
Someone needs to go. Some kind of change needs to happen. after 27 straight games. Is there hope? Yes, because of their young core.
Cade with the basketball. Cade!
But I feel like that light is very dim right now because of how bad it's getting.
We haven't gotten blown out 27 games in a row. You think like we're this terrible team. It's just, you know, we've had a couple things go wrong in each of these games that lead to losses, and it's about correcting those couple of things that are going wrong.
I asked Nikolov, is he considering selling his season tickets? And he says, no way. The Pistons play the Celtics tomorrow in Boston. That team has the best record in the NBA right now. Wouldn't that be something if the Pistons beat the Celtics? We're live outside the LCA. Will Jones, Local 4.
Always the possibility of possibilities, Will.